But on this second hour, thank you so much for joining us again. We are talking about matters environmental conservation tomorrow, the 5th of June. And as we do each and every year, we talk about matters environment, where we are celebrating World Environment Day. And in studio, I have 3 environmental champions, let me call them so, as they are working each and every day to ensure that we have a better environment, and more so when we talk about matters climate change. Everybody has felt the pinch when we talk about matters climate change. Allow me to begin from my immediate left. We have Elizabeth Atieno.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Elizabeth is a food advocate from Greenpeace Africa.
Yes.
Just next to him, we have Samwel Odhiambo. Samwel is from Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And next to him, we have Ngeno, who is the coordinator, Mothers Rebellion for Climate Justice Kenya. An interesting name. Karibu sana. And maybe let's begin from there. Mothers Rebellion, that has caught my eye. Tell us what you do as a coordinator at Mothers Rebellion for Climate Justice. Why rebellion?
Okay, thank you for having us this morning.
You're welcome.
Mothers Rebellion is it's a global movement of women in climate space, and it originated from USA, California, and it spread to Sweden, and from there, it's now in all over 26 countries in the world. Mothers Rebellion Kenya, it came to Kenya in last year, September. I founded it. That's when I joined the movement, and we have 2 chapters in Nairobi and Kisumu. Yeah, so what we do is we make cycles, a form of what you say, a protest. We protest by having cycles. You come to maybe a public space, a public park. You have a cycle of mothers, children, aunties, grandparents, and you all poster written on something on climate change. And what we are advocating for is a better future for our children. And we are using that the caregiving nature of mothers. Mothers if they can take care of a small baby, they can also take good care of the environment.
All right. We'll be canvassing that a little bit deeper. Elizabeth, you work at Greenpeace Africa as a food advocate. Tell us some of the mandates that you have at Greenpeace Africa, and what exactly are you doing in matters environmental conservation?
Thank you so much. So generally, I'm a food advocate. I speak to people, to school children, going to everyone that I found. I just speak to them about food sovereignty and just trying to see how can we be able to produce our food while also taking care of our environment. Because agriculture has been labeled as one of the main major polluters of the environment. So for me, that was key when immediately after university, that is a topic that I came across, and I was like, okay, now I'm a person who is interested in agriculture, interested in matters of food security, but how do we make sure that our small-scale farmers or our farmers in general are producing food in an environmental, in a sustainable way? So that's how I ended up with Greenpeace Africa, which is an NGO that basically stands for protection of the environment. So the aim of Greenpeace Africa is just to protect the environment from degradation, and also try to find solutions to make sure that we can be able to work, to live, and also to adapt to the environment while we're also taking care of it. So it's providing for us while we're also taking care of it. So how do we make sure that we stop harming our environment? Because we now see how it's reacting to us. It's now killing people through floods and droughts and all that. And this is because we've been treating it a certain way for so long. So right now it's rebelling, and it's time for us to really go back and decide how do we want our environment to treat us. It has to treat us the way we are treating it. So if we are cutting trees and polluting the environment, then it's going to act in a certain way, and that's why we see recently in Kenya, you see there are issues of floods and all that.
So in short, if we don't adopt smart farming techniques, as farmers, we might end up being also people who are contributing to climate change.
Exactly.
You'll be telling us how we ensure that we are food smart so that we may fight climate change.
Thank you.
Because it's affecting everyone.
Yes, 100%.
Samwel, you work at Climate Awareness Defenders. What exactly do you do?
At Climate Awareness Defenders, our main focus is creating awareness, because after practicing other initiatives, mitigation process like tree growing, we found out that not so many Kenyans climate change. So we came together, many like-minded individuals who love and have passion for environment, and we said our main focus should be creating awareness before hitting the ground to do the mitigation and any other.
Now we will be celebrating World Environment Day, and I'm 100% sure, Elizabeth, is that tomorrow something that will be mentioned is the 15 billion trees that we are planning to plant in the next 10 years. How much of a help in terms of matters climate change is the 15 billion trees?
I think as a country we've done a lot of good work. I can commend our government for that, in terms of making sure that we are restoring our environment and also dealing and addressing the issues of desertification. But I think we also need to be keen in terms of we are going to lose the point. So the major question you're supposed to be asking ourselves, are we just planting trees because we want to tick a box and say that on this specific date we planted 5,000 trees or 5 billion trees or 5 million trees? Or are we really doing that so that we can be able to restore our environment? Because we've gotten to a position where we are planting trees, but do we have plans to care for these trees, to make sure that they are going to mature? So for example, we had issues with flooding. In the next few months, you're going to have issues with droughts. So if you're planting trees tomorrow, what's going to happen after the drought? Are we involving communities to make sure that while we are planting these trees, we have people to care for, continue to be there and restore the environment? Another big problem with the issue of planting trees is now corporations are hiding behind planting trees. And they're saying that because we are planting trees, so you're supposed to allow us to pollute the environment. No, we can't do that. Planting trees is not the main issue. The main issue is that you are polluting the environment and you have to stop emitting these toxic greenhouse gases to the environment. That's the only way we can be able to fight the issue of climate crisis. So we need to take a step backward and really think about what we are doing. Are we planting trees so that people can say Kenyans have been planting so many trees? Are we caring for those trees? Some of the trees that we have already planted in the back, do we even know if they are, how can we like have a roster and say these are the trees that we planted 5,000 and now we have 4,000, or we have the same 5,000. We don't do that. We just plant trees, we make it ceremonial, we get trees, we plant, and then that's it. People just go their way. And can you imagine how long it takes for a tree to grow? And we are already dealing with the climate crisis. We've already seen people dying. Now we are going to go into another cycle of drought. We were dealing with floods. So are we going to be a country that is going to just be dealing with crisis management and planting trees and not really following up and seeing that, are we really working towards sustainable ways of caring for our environment? So I think we really need to shift from thinking about, it's more of like we're putting profit in front of people. So we are thinking of shortcuts. What's the shortcut for us? Let's plant 5,000 trees and that's it. We'll go and say that no, we are not supposed to do that. We need to hold these corporations accountable and make sure that we have to stop polluting the environment and releasing the greenhouse gases that have now impacted us. And also we also need to look at it from who is paying for all these. These people are making profits. Small-scale farmers are losing their crops. People are dying. People have been displaced. Until now, there are people who haven't been displaced. So what are we really doing as a government? What are we really doing as the people to make sure that our communities can be able to deal with the impacts of climate change and not really make it ceremonial and just plant trees for the sake of wanting donor money or wanting some company to come and invest in Kenya? We really need to start putting people before profit.
Betty, let me pick from what Elizabeth has mentioned in terms of figures, the money, because at the end of the day we will find some people also hiding behind that. And it's a good thing she has mentioned this, because Africa, unfortunately, we are the worst hit by climate change in all aspects, in terms of our economies, in terms of even the money that we have, in terms of money that we are using for climate adaptation and mitigation. And talking about adaptation and mitigation, these are two different things that Kenya should also understand in regards to that. And tell us, in regards, in as much as you are rebelling, how much are we getting as Africa or even as Kenya? Are we getting enough that we've been able to fight for this, or we still have to continue rebelling so that they might hear us and getting louder?
Yeah, what I can say is that we don't get much. We get a little. And also there is little information and education on matters climate especially on our school systems. From where I'm coming from, I have children who are going to schools, and I normally ask them, do you have environmental clubs in your school? And they say no. So we need to do this thing from grassroots. If we can get children from school, are we educating them on the matters of environment? They don't even know what's climate change. What is climate change? They say rain, sun, it's not that. And also, if we can get women, rural women from rural areas, as these women mostly, they use firewood for cooking. Where do they get the firewood? From trees. If you fell that tree, are you replacing that tree? They don't have that information. As long as they have cut that tree, it's over. So we have to teach our women, we have to teach our generations, we have to teach our everyone about the impacts of climate change, the adaptation measures and the mitigation measures. And also, we have the women rep positions in the government. What are they doing in the grassroots level? What are they doing to impact women? What are they giving information? And that's what I'm urging the government, the women representatives, because they are representing women. Are they really impacting women on the space, on climate space? Yeah.
And Samwel, yeah. You champion awareness in terms of how we live in our environment and how we need to conserve that environment. And I think it's Betty or Elizabeth who has mentioned that even in schools, we really need to get this message out there. How far have you gone in terms of awareness? Well, it's one thing to know how to plant trees, climate adaptation and mitigation. It's another to implement that.
As an organization in terms of school, we've been really reaching out to schools, especially primary schools, where we train kids matters of climate from the better language they can understand, the easiest and the simplest language. And we've been able to reach like 11 schools. We've been trying to have environmental clubs because that's the only way you can train kids to make it as simple as enjoyable so they can understand whatever climate issue is all about. And you can also not go the whole of school to give the general information, but if you come up with some clubs, like we call them environmental clubs, it becomes much easier on regards to trainings and education. And generally in public we do forums, trainings, we do social media campaigns, especially on social media. If you look at my page, I talk about climate awareness as an advocacy. And just to add on what Eliza mentioned about corporates hiding behind the tree growing activity, we always advocate for Adopt a Tree initiative. Many people have heard this word, but it's not actually, I don't know if they understand what it means to adopt a tree. To adopt a tree means any tree planted should be taken care of until that stage where it can now take care of ourselves. But you find out many people just have an event on the weekend, on a Saturday, just for a show. So as Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders, we champion. If we know you are going to have an event, we champion and we advocate you look for a community-based group on the ground, so you can collaborate with them. After you guys coming, maybe doing a donation of tree seedlings or doing the activity, the community left behind or living on that area are now charged with taking care of these trees planted until that day they can take care of us. And that's the only scheme, if used, we can now achieve these 15 million trees being talked about. But if community or government officials or corporates just wake up, this is a Saturday, let's go plant tree, and then they get back to their places, we won't achieve that target. Yeah.
Elizabeth, you talked about most of the farming methods that we have can also affect our environment. What are some of the smart agriculture that we can adopt that can help in environmental conservation? Reason being, when we talk about planting trees, if we plant eucalyptus trees, we are not doing ourselves justice. So what are some of the smart farming methods that we should embrace so that we may try and fight climate change?
Thank you so much. I think for me, one of the things that really frustrates me about this conversation is the first World Environment Day celebration was like 50 years ago, actually 51 years ago. And the message was clear. The message was that we have one Earth. And it was trying to say that we need to take care of our environment. 50 years later, we are still having the same conversation.
And the
we
environment is even worse than 50 years.
It's like we are not acting. We are just talking about climate action, and we are really not acting. And a very good example is Kenya. We have very good plans when it comes to how we are supposed to, policies and plans when it comes to how we are supposed to deal with the issues of climate change. Even in the agricultural sector, we have very good plans that are supposed to help farmers deal with the impacts of climate change and also adapt and find better ways of production when it comes to farming. But it's not being implemented. And you find that the government is so obsessed with having, for example, subsidies, very toxic subsidies. And what they're saying is we are giving farmers fertilizers and pesticides and certified seeds. And you go and find that these pesticides are the ones that are making our environment even worse. It's killing our biodiversity, it's polluting our waters, it's killing even our farmers. Most of our farmers now have to deal with the issues of cancer because of the pesticides that they are using. So you find that as a community, as a government, we have very good plans when it comes to what we are supposed to do, but we are not really doing anything. For example, now we have this punitive seed law in place that is saying that small-scale farmers are not supposed to exchange uncertified or indigenous seeds. We know the role of indigenous seeds when it comes to biodiversity. I was raised in a village, and coming from school, I will pass different variety of fruits. It's a mango here, it's an avocado there, and right now you go to the village and there are so many few varieties of even fruits that we have. And if we have a government that is saying small-scale farmers are not supposed to exchange, or rather they are not allowed to sell indigenous seeds, then what are you trying to say? You are trying to say that you want them to use certified seeds, and most of these certified seeds they buy from the agrovet. They cannot help when it comes to conserving our biodiversity. So we are losing it because we keep on advocating for unsustainable ways of farming, but we are very clear of what we are supposed to do. It's not that we don't know, and that's why I was saying that it's more of action. We need to stop hiding from shortcuts, like saying we are going to plant trees, and really go down and say, what are we supposed to do? How can we support our small-scale farmers to make sure that they are producing food sustainably, and also making sure that they can be able to feed the nation? Small-scale farmers produce more than 80% of the food that we eat. I know as we are seated here, almost all of us ate something in the morning that has been produced by a small-scale farmer from somewhere. So how are we supporting them? How are we making sure that when the next extreme weather event hits, they are not going to be affected, they are not going to lose all their plants? We can do that as a government, we can do that as NGOs, we can do that as individuals. We also have a role to play as individuals. You have a role, I have a role. We need to look at how are we also consuming. It's said that in Africa we lose around 5.2 million tons of food per year. And you can imagine it shows starving. Exactly, and we are still starving, and we are still talking about we need to produce more. No, we need to look at sustainable ways of doing things. So it's not, for me, it's not only the government that needs to really go down and try and help in terms of really implementing these policies that we already have in place, but it's also individuals. We also need to be accountable and hold ourselves accountable and make sure that we are helping our small-scale farmers produce quality food. There's also the thing that most people don't even buy organic products in the market. You will say it's expensive, it's this and that. It's fine, we are not even conscious enough to really think about the food that we eat. We go to the market and we buy. We don't care. It's laced with pesticides, toxic pesticides. We are eating apples that are full of pesticides. We are just feeding ourselves poison. But we don't sit for a moment and ask ourselves, that food that I ate yesterday, is it safe? We don't. So I feel like it's also like individual responsibility to really just play a role when it comes to environmental conservation.
I totally concur, because also being raised from the village, we used to love bread, but we were being given domas and guashes, which we didn't like because we wanted the packaged product. And back then, bread was expensive, was more expensive than domas and guashes. Now, the domas and guashes are more expensive than bread. And Betty, going back to the World Environment Day, as Liz has pointed out, this is the 51st we are celebrating. But unfortunately, since the 1st and the 51st, we have done worse. we are far much worse than 50 years ago in terms of climate mitigation and adaptations. And looking at the theme, we're talking about land restoration, desertification, drought resistance. We've had COP 1, 2, 3, 4, now we are in 20-something.
29.
But unfortunately, we are only raising and rebelling, raising placards saying this is what we want, this is what we want, but we are doing quite different. How is it now different when we talk about One Environment Day? What are some of the things that, or some of the measures that we are supposed to take from now going forward? Because 50 years ago, you were still doing the same thing we are doing now. Now we're even worse.
Thank you so much. As we mark the World Environmental Day tomorrow, what I can say is that there's nothing to celebrate. What are we celebrating? We are still losing people because of floods. We lost people, I think, in 2022 because of droughts in Kajiado and the arid areas. And what we have done is...
This year, almost 300 because of the flood.
Yeah. I think what we have done is talking. There's nothing in place. And what government is doing is talking. We have good plans in book, but in ground, zero. So I think what we need to do is, what are we doing individually, as Lisa said, what are we doing individually to change that thing? Are we impacting, are you doing something somewhere? And also what government needs to do is take the policies to the ground, not in the offices, because they are writing those things in the offices and they are left there. No one is reading. Who is going to read them? And the most impacted and the most affected are the rural women, children who are in the rural areas. And these effects of climate change, the most affected are women and children, because they are vulnerable, because of their biological spheres and how they have been built. Like the case of Maimayu, there was around 52 people died and 29 alone were children. Are we going to lose more? What kind of generation are we going to have in future if we are going to lose all the children now? And what the government needs to do now is to put measures in ground. Let those people in the government come down to people, not just talking in televisions, organizing for events. We are having tree planting, you plant a tree there, who is going to see it? You just plant it, you put a placard there, you take pictures, and that is it. We don't want that. We want them to come down in place, and also if they can fund the community-based organizations. There are a lot of community-based organizations. If they can fund farmers, if they can give them affordable and organic fertilizers, as Lisa said, we can mitigate this. And also education. Do these people have information? What's happening? As Lisa said, when we were growing up, even where I'm coming from, there was a small stream. A lot of people were getting water from there. But when I go there, it's dried up. Because of what? Because of people lack knowledge, and they were asking themselves, oh, mtoni likauka, why? They don't know why. But if we give them that information, this is happening, we can do this. And that's why Mothers Rebellion are rebelling, because we believe that women, they can save more on water, as in they can do more as the caregivers. And we want that information. We can train more women. We can get them, we can give them something like maybe fruit orchards in their homes. And when droughts come, what will they do? We can have them the smart agriculture, as Lisa said. You can use them to those sacks, gardens in their homes, the small, which they can manage. And instead of pouring water, they can use that water. Maybe they can use that water to irrigate those plants. And also it can boost nutrition, and also we can have healthy children. And this crisis, it's affecting even education. If there is drought, there's no food. Will children go to school? No, they not go to school.
I'm looking at, Odhiambo, I'm looking at over 50 years that we've been messing our country despite observing an environment day specifically for environmental restoration. The mangroves, the marine life, is also somewhere that we are forgetting a lot. And also, still on awareness, I'm looking at the money that we've seen different COPs, the developed economies, are pumping into Africa, which is the worst hit in terms of climate change. Is that really enough to do all that? Because we always say, if you dump, you pay.
Yep. I don't think if the money is enough, And even if it's enough,
you should be clamoring for more.
Yeah, we should be asking for more. And our issue or our thinking as Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders, this money is not being channeled to the right processes, to the right people. This money is not being felt on the ground, because if it could be felt on the ground, we could see a big difference in terms of activities, youth-led initiatives on matters of mitigation and adaptation, or even of creating awareness. But as from our side, what we see is these finances come, the best it can do is having forums, having seminars, making policies which does not hit the ground and which we does not see any difference making. That's why most environmental activists will still see us on the street having placards, because we have not felt the impact of these funds on the ground. And I think these things should be addressed, especially with our government and our ministry and all the people concerned. On the matters of marine life, just like Madam Liz have said, I don't know if it's only in Kenya or in the world, we use something we have until maybe it's no longer there. That's when we realize we are supposed to conserve it. Like even for the example of the river, they used it until that time it was no longer there. That's now what people realize they should conserve it. I'll give an example. I'm an advocate of organic farmer, and I really love organic foods. No matter how I do my own farming on my backyard. So we create awareness in our organization to promote such kind of activities, because the more you use fertilizers and chemicals on your farms, that land will not, in the next 20 or 30 years, it will be now a dried land, what we are talking about for the Environmental Day. But it's something, if the government can take an initiative of teaching farmers to embrace organic farming. The organic farming we can use, she talked about the waste products, the food waste, over 1 billion in Africa. Kenya, if you've ever gone to a dumping site, majority of the waste there are food waste, especially from our homes. This food waste can be used to make manure, which are organic, and which can be used to make small micro gardens and micro farms with using the sacks and the container. So you see up there will be a little, or even there will be a way. We avoided destroying our land using chemicals and using a smart way of farming. Those are the teachings we should teach our people. We should not teach our people to continue using more fertilizers, which are so much expensive and destroying our land. Yes.
I think that's one of the ways that we can address this. Madam Liz, I'm looking at the bamboo is becoming something that is being preferred in a number of nations. Asia has done a pretty good job, and especially China, in regards to use of bamboo to assist wetland conservation. And I've noted Nandi County is one of the counties who are embracing bamboo for the restoration of wetlands. How much of this should we cascade to other counties, and how much, as an expert, does it help to conserve even the wetlands? Because if we don't do that, we are doomed.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just frustrating. I keep saying this because it is frustrating. Because we have seen these things work. We've seen how bamboos have been working in restoring other wetlands in other countries. Now we have examples in Kenya where we see counties that are doing it. For example, Nandi County, which for the longest time people have been looking at it as a dry area in somewhere where nothing good comes from, literally. But now we see it like working. For example, now, even right now, when you talk about agriculture and food, you see Machakos County doing so well when it comes to food production. And we have these examples in country, not even outside the country. But we are not doing anything about it. We are not replicating this in other counties. We still have counties that have to deal with issues of insecurity every single year. Every single year, there are people who go to bed without food. There are people who die. There are kids who die because they don't have food to eat. Because we don't want to get into implementation. We are more focused on just making a lot of noise and saying that we are doing this on paper, but not really implementing it. Our president is the head of the, what is it called? The Committee of African Leaders and States on climate change. Exactly. Yes. And as a country, what are we making noise about right now? Planting trees. It means that's the same example that other countries are going to follow, because our president is known as a climate fighter, a climate champion. So what are we doing that other countries can be able to really pick up on? If it's something about bamboo and how it's helping our wetlands, why can't we work hard on replicating that? If it's, for example, how we can be able to take care of our forests. For example, the Mau forest is one of the indigenous forests that we have in Kenya that really plays a very important role in just taking care of the environment. Why don't we show through really doing the actions that are looking at the core issues when it comes to the climate crisis? And that's where the frustration comes from, because we have these examples. We know, we have governors who know, we have leaders who know, even from the county level, but we are not really taking action. It's more of making a lot of noise and making it ceremonial. Tomorrow there are so many people who will be taking pictures with trees and planting this tree and all that. But after that, just go and ask the county governments. Just ask them, how much trees did we plant? Can we have like a roster of exactly saying which trees we planted, where they are, who is going to take care of them? We have communities. Why can't we do this in partnership with communities? Why can't we bring in communities and say, like, we are going to have this restricted area, we are going to make it like a community program, and we're going to take care of these trees? Why can't we do that? Why do we just want to make it more of a photo session? And then after that, we go home and say we are doing something. We are not. There are so many examples, and the bamboo is one of the examples that we can be able to replicate as a country. But we are not. So it's very frustrating, and I just hope that now that we have started to feel the real effects of the climate crisis, we can now go into really acting and stop just making a lot of noise about the issue of climate.
Betty, let me pick from where Elizabeth has left it. And I'm looking at Kenya. We have decided 15 billion trees in the next 10 years. What if our neighbors, Uganda, Tanzania, Somalia, do not actively participate in environmental conservation? That will be counterproductive for the country as well. How do we ensure that each and everyone is doing what they should? Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, all the East African countries, because we are a region here. And Kenya, Somalia, we are in the sub-Saharan Africa, where more or less we are not quite far from the desert.
Okay, thank you for that. I think what we need to do as a government, we should also work with our neighbors. You take care of your neighbor so that you can take care of you. Because if you plant fruits in your side, there's no fruit from the neighbor side, so they'll come and steal from your side. So as much as we are doing as a country, we need also to involve our neighbors from Uganda, from Tanzania, and at the region as well. And by doing that, we'll ensure that the whole region is really doing something on climate crisis. And because this thing is really affecting us. We have heard of the heat crisis in South Sudan. Children are dying because of heat. Heat.
And even in West Africa a couple of months back.
Yeah, people were dying because of heat. And what's causing that? It's because of climate. We have destroyed the ozone. The ozone is destroyed because of the emission of the gases. And we need to come up with something like policy for the region. If you plant trees here, also the other side should do that, because there is not. Because if Kenya alone do that, if the crisis is the other side, they'll come here, all of them, and will not be able to sustain all the people here. Yeah. And
still on that, because you are awareness defender, we have an East African anthem. I think if we cascaded a reforestation anthem in the region, will be moving somewhere. Have you explored creating awareness in the region? Because at the end of the day, if we conserve the environment in Kenya, but our neighbors don't do that, that will be counterproductive.
Yeah, we've tried to reach out. There's an affiliate group called African Youth Congress. It was founded by environmentalists like me. So we've tried to champion for environmental activities, especially in Uganda. We have a forum in this September to continue with advocacy and awareness creation in that area. But I think this issue can be addressed more openly with our government, especially now when our president is sitting at the top of African leadership on matters of climate. I think it's something they can voice out and bring a bigger impact, though as a people or as a community or as a youth groups, we are trying to champion on our own small skills. Yeah.
How can we champion so that the environment conversation, so that we may also benefit from carbon credits? Because at the end of the day, we need to do everything. We have to mitigate and adapt to climate change.
Yeah. I think it starts with really going and looking at the core issue when it comes to the issue of climate crisis. What is it that is causing this climate crisis? And we've been talking about planting billions of trees. But does it make sense when we are planting billions of trees and then we are lifting a ban on logging? So when we had the ban, we had our forest cover grew from, I think, 5% to 8% in 3 years. Can you imagine that small increase? And then when we lift the ban, can you imagine the impact that that is going to have? It means we are going to go back to where we were, even maybe less to where we were. So I think we really need to stop making it more of a ceremonial thing and just making noise and really aligning our national goals to really make sure that we are able in terms of fighting this. Because we cannot say on one hand, I'm going to plant trees, and then on the other hand, I'm going to lift ban on logging because I want the youth to get jobs. No, that is not a sustainable jobs. What happens when we have cut all the trees? Do they go back to like do what exactly? There are so many other sustainable ways that we can be able to get the youths to use our forest and make money on even get jobs. So I think basically for me is we know what we're supposed to do already. We have strategies. We have our president is even representing us in Africa when it comes to Kenya being one of the champions when it comes to really making this work. So I think it's very important for us to really go back down and look at our policies and really make sure that we have very good policies. Kenya actually is one of the countries that leads when it comes to that.
Like we always say in politics, the only issue comes when we come to implementation.
Exactly. So let's just try and implement. And once we start implementing, we will all see the fruits, because we are seeing the fruits happening in different counties where even county leaders and governors are doing it and making it work. So why can't we just do that as a country and make sure that we can be an example to other even neighbors, to our neighbors? Because we cannot be planting, what you've said, we cannot be planting trees and Tanzania is not doing it or Uganda is not doing it. We have to do this as a whole. We have messed with our environment as a group, so we need to also work on that. When it comes to carbon credits, for me, I don't think we need to use that as a primary excuse for not like doing anything and saying that this is what we are doing. It's like it's like you have a wound, a very big wound, and then you take a bandage and cover it.
Yes.
It's not going to work. You have to care for it. So we really need to go back and look at the core issues, core reasons why we're having the issues of climate crisis. And it's because we keep on emitting greenhouse gases in the environment. So as we are talking about planting trees and carbon offsetting projects, can we also look at the core issue, which is we are allowing these corporations to continue pollute our environment as they hide behind saying that we are planting trees. Yes, it's fine. I advocate for planting trees. I tell everyone every single day, if you find a chance to plant tree, please plant it, because it can go a long way to save to do something for our environment. But at the end of the day, we really need to go and look at the core reason why we are doing, where we have this issue. And we cannot say that. A very good example that a colleague gave me last week was you smoke, and you go to a doctor and the doctor tells you that you need to stop smoking because it's affecting your lungs. And then you go home and you think about it and you say, okay, I'll start eating salad. So is salad going to offset the impacts of the smoking? No. So you have to also look at how is this affecting me. I cannot continue smoking a pack of cigarette every single day and expect the salad to offset the effects of. So I think it's fine that we are looking at different ways that we can be able to deal with the climate crisis, but let's be realistic.
All right. Betty, as we wrap up, what is your clarion call as we celebrate World Environment Day, and looking back 50 years, we've already messed. We need to clean up.
What I can say is that let me call on our leaders. Corruption is something that's really messing us up. We see what happened in those wetlands areas, in the riparian lands. People were sold the lands. People built houses there. Who sold the lands? The lands were already casted by the government. So it's something that happened from the government itself. So let our leaders be accountable. Let them be accountable for what they're doing to our environment. And also, let's also have gender statistics on the effects of climate who is the most affected? Who are we going to help? Is it women? Is it children? Is it the people with disabilities? And also regions. Who are the most affected? Which region is the most affected? And if we get that statistics well, we can be able to put the mitigation measures, but also we can be able to put the education on place. And through that, we can have, and also funding for the CBOs, for the women-led groups, for the agricultural groups that are in the ground. If we can do that, we can see change from the ground, not from the offices. We can make policies, but they cannot be in place because why? We have not implemented them. It cannot work from the office. It can only work from the ground, from the people from the ground. So what I can say is that as we mark the World Environmental Day tomorrow, let's all stand up for our environment. We are all responsible for our environment.
Oh. Thank you. Samwel, as we wrap up?
Yes, as we wrap up, I want to call on the responsible government, our government. On ground, I'm always on ground, and I work with youths. Youths are very willing, and they're already participating on their own on matters of climate and initiatives. So I don't see why it's so difficult for our government, especially the Ministry of Environment, why they cannot come down and channel resources to these youth-led initiatives on the ground. They have the data, they know them by names, by actions. They're all over social media. You see what youth groups are doing. I don't know why it's so difficult. We have the policies, we have the finances. We also know the minister has finances to do its activities. I don't know why it's so difficult for them to come down and combine or join forces with the youth-led organizations so that we can have at least a bigger step, something that can be seen. After 1 year, this is what we have been able to do. If it's planting the trees, this is what we've been able to plant the trees, which can be accounted for. Many youths, I'll talk now as a youth leader, many youths in the past regime, there were so many youths in the Kazim Tani, you remember? Yeah. Most of these youths have come back and now doing climate activities with no government support. I think it's a wake-up call for our government to come on board if they really want to achieve this target of 15 billion trees, to embrace youth-led organizations and groups in the ground to practice and continue with the climate effect mitigation and all the involved processes.
All right, thank you. Samwel Odhiambo from the Kenya Climate Awareness Defenders. Just next to me, we have Elizabeth Atieno from the Greenpeace Africa there as a food advocate. And far left, we have Betty Ngeno, the coordinator, Mothers Rebellion for Climate Justice Kenya. This is a conversation that we really need to expound further, and especially how climate change affects women, youth, women, children, and persons with disabilities. Again, when it comes to matters climate, we have climate adaptations and mitigation. Think of it as a boat. You're in a boat that has a hole that is leaking. You have to flush that water out, or do you fix the boat? You can do both. Either way, we really need to change our ways so that we may have a softer war, climate change war. Thank you so much indeed for watching. My name is Bentroy Njue. Anu Wangeshi has been our sign language interpreter for these 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining us since we began at 10 a.m. We do this again some other time. On behalf of everyone who has made this broadcast a success, including my director, Jackie Wasolo, I thank you so much for watching. I'm now giving the baton to the Swahili desk for Kurunzi Mashinani and Tamrini. Have a blessed one.